Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What do we estimate the time for Iran to achieve breakout now, and what would we consider a good deal? How far would we have to push them back to have this considered a good deal?
I think, Mr. Engel, that it would be best to discuss breakout times with the intelligence community in a classified briefing, but I will tell you that most analysts out in the public say that right now Iran's breakout time is about 2 months. And by that I mean how much time, if they decided to go for it, they could produce enough highly enriched uranium for one nuclear weapon. There are 2 paths to a nuclear weapon in terms of fissile material, which I know you well know, but for all members, one is highly enriched uranium, that's Natanz and Fordo, and one is plutonium, that is the current configuration of the Iraq reactor. And we want to stop and block both of those pathways as well as the covert pathway. I have said publicly that we believe that we need to go many months beyond that to achieve the kind of assurance that we are looking for that Iran cannot obtain a nuclear weapon.
We voted on an agreement with the United Arab Emirates, which for a long time considered the gold standard in civil nuclear cooperation, in which we agreed to give them, to allow them to have nuclear power for peaceful purposes in exchange for not enriching on their soil. If we are indeed going to have an agreement with Iran which allows them to enrich on their soil, how can we ever get countries that come after Iran to agree to an agreement, the 123 agreement, similar to the one that the UAE agreed to?
This is obviously an area of concern, as you point out, Congressman. We have discussed this with UAE and many other countries, in fact. But what we are looking at here, if we are able to achieve a comprehensive agreement, and as I said, I don't know whether we will or not, because Iran has to make some very difficult decisions, and I'm not sure whether they will or not, is that it will be a very small, highly constrained, intrusively monitored program. And they will have years of that kind of intrusive monitoring. I don't think that's a road that will be attractive to anyone else to go down. But it is something on which we are having continuing conversations. We believe, quite frankly, as you know, that Iran would be better off without any enrichment program. You can get fuel on the open market. They have argued, in fact, that they should be able to fuel Bushehr, which the Russians currently fuel and have made a guarantee for life. We believe that Russia should continue to fuel Bushehr, and Iran has no need to do so. So anything that ends up in this agreement, if it does on the enrichment side, will be very small, very limited to a practical need, intrusively monitored, and not a path that we think will be attractive to anyone else.
You mentioned that Iran has been keeping some of its promises and has shown some flexibility, but in terms of the question of their enrichment capacity, there's been less flexibility. Can you elaborate on that at all, or if you can't, what would make us think that they would suddenly see the light and have some flexibility?
Well, what I would say is that we have said that their current capacity has to be severely limited, and that where their program would begin in any agreement would have to be much smaller than what they currently have. We're approaching this in quite a holistic way. We are looking at all the ways in which Iranian enrichment capacity could be misused. Any arrangement in which we reach will be designed to address any problem that might come along the way. So we'll look at capacity, we'll look at advanced centrifuges, which could increase their capacity over time. We'll deal with R&D, we'll deal with their separate work units, which is the measure of the energy in their production. We'll deal with stockpiles, we'll deal with facilities, we'll deal with the monitoring quite intrusively, and any arrangement that we might get to an agreement on will ensure that if we close the front door, that Iran cannot enter through a back door. It is very complicated, it's highly technical. Some of my colleagues who are part of our expert team sit behind me. Quite frankly, it is a whole-of-government effort The Department of Energy has been a tremendous partner, as have our labs, to make sure that should we get to an agreement, we know exactly what we are getting down to the finest technical detail.
Mr. Secretary Cohen, let me just ask you a very quick question. The sanctions relief would be based on a phased system, including waivers. Will the Iranians, do you believe, accept a deal that relies on waivers, not permanent relief? And how would you think that Congress anticipate Congress's involvement in this?
Congressman, I am not going to venture a guess on whether the Iranians will accept a deal based on waivers. Perhaps Undersecretary Sherman wants to address that. In terms of Congress's role, as you say, the notion for a comprehensive deal is one where whatever relief is offered to Iran is phased in over time and is tied to Iran taking verifiable steps along the way. I think it's very important that we maintain pressure during the course of that period, so that initially what we have is sanctions that are suspended, not lifted, and then eventually perhaps move to lifting the sanctions. But in the near term, the notion would be that we would suspend sanctions through the exercise of our authorities.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would just reiterate what the Chairman said before. Our letter to the President, signed by 3/4 of Congress, we feel very strongly that Congress must be involved. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. We go now.